Hey there, guys. Welcome to Anthony Reviews. We're Anthony Reviews, and today we got a little bit of an unboxing for you guys. We're taking a look at the Marvel Legends X-Force Archangel, as well as the Marvel Legends X-Force X-23 and Warpath. And then, you know what, just for fun, Marvel Legends Black Suit Spider-Man from Spider-Man 3. It just sort of happened to work out that I have all these sort of black and white and gray and silver characters together, so I figured since they're all Marvel Legends, we got a little bit of a theme going on. Let's go ahead and start with Archangel here, alphabetical order. The box here is pretty nice. It's pretty simple, lots of black here with an X-Force logo down at the bottom. You see Archangel very nicely with his big wings, X logo on the top here, some artwork if you'd like that. And then a bit of a bio with some additional artwork where you can see the other X-Force characters down at the bottom below. So, pretty standard Marvel Legends stuff at this point. There he is in his tray there. And here we have Archangel all out of his packaging. This is exactly how he comes. So he's got a couple of accessories here. Take a look first at this sort of alternate screaming head. I think of X-Force Archangel, and I do sort of think of this screaming, mad that Apocalypse is alive, and that kind of whole gimmick with Warren. So I think that is appropriate. Got these sort of clawed, sort of reaching out, grasping hands. So if you want them kind of like flying at you, coming at you with these scary claws, that's an option too. We also have these sort of like knife feather throwing effects. So these will later attach to the wing, and we'll see what that looks like. And you kind of, like that. And then Warren himself looks really, really nice, honestly. Like, I know Archangel, he's got the sort of blues and the purples and all that and the whatever, but black and silver looks really good. The way that they did the blue on the face, I think, looks really nice. The detail with the eyes, it's all there. It's all sort of like sculpted on the face. The body is completely painted, of course, but the head sculpt itself is very, very nicely sculpted and very nicely painted. Fairly clean from what I can tell. There might be a couple of sort of like little blotches here and there, but overall, a very, very clean look. You can see that's where the wings will go in, which we'll kind of look at in a moment, but still very kind of reminds me of like Superman when he dies and comes back, right? Like the sort of rebirth solar suit with the sort of like silver rings and like the toe bits, and it kind of gives me that vibe. So I mean, it kind of, Archangel kind of coming back makes sense to have that sort of feeling, I guess. But either way, he does look very nice. So as stated, the wings kind of come in a couple of pieces here, 2 wings, 3 pieces each, and I guess we'll sort of figure out how to put this all together. So I guess the best way to do it is just kind of like map out which way the wings are bending. So like kind of, I'm assuming this maybe goes, well, no, this probably goes on the back piece here. So something like that. And then the big sort of wing here, that'll go here, presumably. So that looks right, right? Like it all sort of curves and bends like this. I guess we'll see how it looks on the figure. Okay, so Warren is all winged up now. This is what it looks like when it's all said and done. I mean, obviously, with this giant wingspan and all its articulation points, it is very impressive. It's pretty cool when you have it in person, just because it's so big. And, like there's a lot of movement here. You can kind of move these pieces sort of back like this if you kind of want them in an up position. They can fold back down. They do rotate where you sort of plug them in, so you can move them up and down like that. So you do have some sort of options on how you'd want to have your wings. And then, of course, these also sort of curve and bend. So you can kind of have them like cocooned up if you want. Or, if you want to have them sort of out like this. Like, you do have some sort of options here. There is a lot of movement. It's a lot of moving pieces. So it can be a bit sort of like daunting at first to try to get this all in like a comfortable way. But ultimately, I do think that you have some sort of opportunities here and some abilities here to get them in some cool stuff. Here he is with some of the other effects and accessories on him. We've got the sort of open hand and the screaming face and the sort of throwing blades, the sort of metal feathers that he has. I don't really know how you're supposed to sort of clip this on. It's sort of just like a three-pronged thing, and as far as I can tell, there's no instructions. So I don't know if there's like a real sort of way that you can do it. I just sort of jammed it in there, like you just kind of do it like that. And that seems to work, well, as much as it can, I guess. Well, let's not hold our breath here, but you just sort of throw it on, and then you can kind of get this effect going. There's probably a better way to do it. I mean, it looks all right for what it is. I'll probably never display it like this personally, but you do have this sort of different kind of ways to have them displayed, and, it'd be kind of cool. Just be like perspective stuff with the knives and the way the wings arch. It's an interesting effect. He has done this. He sort of shoots his little feathers at people. I think that's an appropriate accessory for him to come with, but it is a little weird how they sort of did it. But it itself looks fine. I mean, no real problems, I guess. In terms of articulation, I do think that he has it where it counts. This is a body that we've had for a little while now. It's sort of the remolded Vulcan body. So it is the sort of newer, bulkier, sort of basic male body that I think works good for Archangel here. But as you can see with that head, you can get him looking up like this. So if you want him to sort of flying at you, you can do that. Like I said, the wings are articulated in a good sort of way. So I think, if you're trying to like get a certain look out of your Archangel, I think it can be achieved. He's got it where it counts, and I think that's appropriate. Like I don't think he's going to do anything out of the norm. He's not going to do anything crazy, but what you'd expect out of a Marvel Legend, he can do that just, with these giant wings, of course. That's going to be the main difference here. I did want to compare him to the only other Archangel that I have, and that being the sort of old school Marvel Legends Hit Monkey Wave Archangel. Now, I know they did a re-release of this guy a few years ago at this point with sort of a lighter blue and, some different wings, but this was the original one that I had for years at this point. So he is a little dated. Oh, goodness, Archangel. So comparatively, he is a little dated, obviously. Like, the wings do look like how the wings looked back then. These are different wings for X-Force Archangel versus the original sort of 80s and 90s Archangel. But I will say, to kind of see this figure with its modern articulation and its sculpting and everything, getting that in sort of this color scheme, I would definitely not be opposed to that. Let's just say that. And I mean, they've made it, so I think it's likely we could get that in some point in the future. But still, I do like this one for what it is. The wings are a bit different. They're definitely a bit bulkier, I would say. Like, where this one has like a backpack system, that one just plugs into the back itself. I mean, it works. It is what it is, but I do like the shininess of this sort of like paint job and everything. I do like that quite a bit. But getting sort of an updated version, a classic Archangel, using the sort of things provided, he can't stop falling. Using the elements provided by the new one, I think that a new sort of classic Archangel could look really cool. But on its own, as X-Force Archangel, I think this figure is probably the best one we've ever gotten. No doubt. It is the best Archangel we've ever gotten, because the only other one was this one painted in black and silver. So yeah, undoubtedly the best Archangel. Let's go ahead and move on to the 2-pack of X-23 and Warpath. Packaging, of course, is very similar. It's an all-black box with that same X-Force logo. Obviously, similar X-Force team, so you're going to have the same X-Force logo. Same X up at the top here. We've got artwork of our two characters on the side, and then we also have artwork on the back with no bio from the looks of it. No, so we don't get to know anything about these two people. They're mysteries to us, so I guess we gotta open it up and learn about them that way, I guess. Really, nothing? No. Nothing. Get a nice look at these two here. Okay, so now we have X-23 and Warpath out of their packaging, and I mean, looking at these guys just together, They look really, really nice. In terms of accessories, they both come with alternate hands. Warpath comes with these sort of like gripping hands here, obviously for his knives. So he has fists and gripping hands for knives. Let's go ahead and take a look at those real quick. It's the same knife, just twice. Black handles, sort of like silver, gray blades. Pretty standard stuff. X23 here, Laura Kinney does come with an alternate head. She does have a mask that she wears with these sort of red lenses, so you do get that option. It's screaming, a lot of screaming, I guess, in X-Force, but, they're violent, murdering people. I guess that's not too crazy to think about, but if you don't like the sort of standard head, you do have this sort of screaming head. And then for alternate hands, we just have this sort of like fists here, and then sort of like an open kind of open palm, I guess, just a relaxed hand, I guess you could call it. Gonna look at X23 first, just because she is a really pretty looking figure. This face sculpt is awesome, I would say. It's appropriately sort of grimacing. It's Laura Kinney, it's Wolverine. She's gonna look a little pissed off. It makes sense for her. And just the way the hair is, it's flowing a little bit, but it's not too flowy. It's not like blowing in the wind like the alternate head here. Like, this is an action-packed sort of head. This one's a bit more subdued, but, it's got all the detail that you would want it to. In terms of the figure, fairly basic. There's a lot of paint that's going on in terms of, like, the torso and the upper legs here, but you do get it where it counts. We have some sculpting details on the boots, as well as these sort of, like, toe claws. As far as I can tell, those are not removable in any way, so she's just going to have open-toed claws, I guess. That's fine with me, but we do have the sort of normal claws. Wolverine claws are always a bit tricky because they can move and bend and kind of be weird. I feel like these are pretty good. These are a bit more spread out. So, I think that's just going to be something you have to deal with no matter what. Wolverine claws, I don't think will ever be perfect when they come out of the packaging. You may have to do a little finagling if you want them perfect, I guess. Let's take a quick look at Warpath as well, where Laura Kinney is like this sort of small knife-like character. Obviously, Warpath is going to be this huge sort of tank of a guy. It is kind of funny because they are very similar. They've got this sort of long flowing hair. They both have the sort of domino mask with the red lenses. But yeah, like I said, this is going to be a big, beefy dude, which, I mean, he looks good. I feel like it's good to have that sort of size sort of difference on the team. He does have the sort of same details of all the blacks and the grays and everything, so it's a team uniform. It makes sense. I did think that the belts being a little different is funny. So, like, this is red with, like, black for the X, and then this is red with silver for the X. So they don't have matching belt buckles, but, I mean, you can figure it out. They're on the same team, but he does look imposing. I do like the head sculpt. I like the sort of color used for the skin tone. Like, overall, I think that this evokes Warpath in all the good ways that it should. So in terms of articulation, I do feel like these are pretty standard, kind of similar to Archangel, where you're not going to get a whole lot of new stuff out of here. Probably some old stuff, all things considered, but considering, like, the torso, it's not something that you're going to get a lot of movement out of, unfortunately, but she does have sort of double-jointed elbows, so you can get her arms up in sort of interesting ways like this. Her legs are articulated enough where you can get some fun sort of kicking and jumping and that sort of thing. So ultimately, I think you're going to be able to get enough out of these characters, but it's nothing too spectacular or nothing too exciting. It is the norm, arguably. Same deal with Warpath here, where, it's a pretty big, bulky body, so you can get him in some poses. Probably the most sort of interesting bit is the way that, like, the torso works, so you do get some movement out of that, for sure. So there is more to him than, say, like, your average bulky body. But in terms of, like, the arms and legs, you can see, because of the pinholes, they're not new. These are old, these are reused. It does have that going for it. So if you're just sort of expecting kind of like a large, bulky body to get it in sort of basic situations like this, that is what you're going to get. You're not really going to get anything new with it, but he does stand there. He can look cool. That's really what you need him to do. One cool thing I forgot to mention about him is that he does have storage for his knives here. So you essentially just take them out of his hands, and then he's got this little sleeve in the back, and it is designed to hold both of them. So if you take the other one here, kind of flip it, I guess you could do either way. But they sort of just slide against each other, And then there you go. They're not going to come out or nothing. They work just fine. They just slide against each other, hold with friction, and there you go. So if you want him with his knives sort of sheathed behind his back, you can do that too. I did want to do some comparisons specifically with Laura Kinney because we've gotten a few Wolverines and X-23s before. So here is the previous X-23 X-Force version and the similar sort of like blacks and grays and everything. So this is what they look like side by side. In terms of height, they're actually pretty similar, which makes sense. You know, Laura Kinney's a bit of a shorter character. Ironically, the older X-23 has a belt buckle that matches the Warpath that we just got. So I guess if you want to do a little swapping, maybe you can do that. But, you know, just the general basics of the new one, having better articulation, better paint, better sculpting in the face and things. Like, it is just a better sort of newer figure. You know, for the time when this figure came out, perfectly fine, perfectly usable. But this one, you see the improvements. Obviously, you really, really do. Here's that new Laura with the Wolverine from X-Force that came around the same time as that other Laura that we just looked at. Different shades of gray, so they don't match perfectly. It's a bit more similar to the other Laura, but I'm very sure that we're going to be getting a new X-Force Wolverine pretty soon, considering the rate in which we're getting these X-Force figures. So if you're waiting for another one, you're probably safe to just wait for that new X-Force Wolverine. But here's what they look like side by side to kind of get an idea of how they will, you know, look for sizes and kind of just the general aesthetic. It'll be pretty similar, but a little bit different. Once again, though, that belt buckle, way closer to Warpath. And then just to show off all these sort of current X-Force figures together, here is some of the figures that we looked at today, as well as the Wolverine and Nightcrawler. Now, I know Nightcrawler was not part of this specific X-Force team, but he was on an X-Force team with similar members, and, you know, it's the black and gray, similar concept. It's good enough for what I'm considering now. So hopefully we do get updated versions of a lot of both the X-Force and Uncanny X-Force team to kind of make this team a bit bigger and wider. We need Wolfsbane. We could use another Phantom X, you know, characters like that. Deadpool, of course, just to kind of help flesh these sort of teams out. But for now, here's a couple of X-Force figures. And last but not least, not actually anything to do with X-Force, we have the Marvel Legends Spider-Man 3 Black Suit Spider-Man. Once again, I kind of just threw this in because it's sort of similar to the rest of the figures that we're looking at today. You know, it's a black suit. It's got silver on there. I mean, even the packaging is pretty similar with its sort of all black look. We get the Spider-Man 3 logo down there. We get a little bit of art of Spider-Man in his black suit, as well as pictures on the back with a bio to kind of talk about what Peter was up to in Spider-Man 3, I guess. But, you know, you guys know what Peter was up to. You've seen Spider-Man 3. There's the cool Spider-Man 3 logo with the curled up legs because it's a dying spider and that's what they do when they die. It's cool. All right, let's just get it open. There's Pete. And here we have Spider-Man out of his packaging in his sort of black and silver glory. And, you know, Spider-Man 3 is obviously the weakest of the original sort of Tobey Maguire, Sam Raimi trilogy. I don't think many people would argue against that. However, as a person who was a child in 2007, I do have nostalgia for Spider-Man 3. I have nostalgia for the black suit, and I do think it looks cool. We'll go ahead and take a look at the accessories. He's got a couple different hands. We have sort of like a splayed out hand with lovely sort of detail on the inside of the palm there. That's pretty cool. As well as sort of a wall crawling, sort of climbing hand. So you got that sort of kind of finger splayed out like that, which I do think is a nice detail. And once again, the palms being painted. That's cool. We do have flipping hands, of course, because this black suit Spider-Man doesn't just shoot sort of like organic webs out of the top of his hand. He still just did the web shooting because he already shot organic webs in these movies, so that makes sense. And then we also have this sort of like Venom symbiote sort of attachment piece to kind of replicate when he's ripping the suit off in the church next to the big bell. Like, yeah, so it is pretty cool. Obviously, Venom hadn't happened yet, but like all the teeth and the detail, it does look very cool, and we'll see soon that you just sort of plop that on him and we'll check it out. Oh, oops, I forgot the head here. We also do have this sort of classic Spider-Man head. Now, I think this head is just a repaint of the sort of head that came with the No Way Home Tobey Maguire, so it's not super accurate to Spider-Man 3, but, you know, what are you going to do, I guess? And then the real sort of selling point of this figure is the classic sort of swooped hair, emo Peter, Bully Maguire, whatever you want to call it. he does, I mean, the likeness is really good. I do think he looks really good. He looks like Spider-Man from Spider-Man 3. Did he ever look like this specifically? Probably not, like it was not something where you saw a lot of him unmasked in the black suit. There's that scene like I mentioned where he's tearing the suit off, but he gets naked in that scene. But this, you know, come on. Like, you're on the internet, you know all the memes. Like, this is cool to have this sort of version of Peter Parker. It was cringy then, but I really I don't care, I wish he could do the dance. Maybe he can. I don't know, we'll figure that out. But either way, really good sculpt. I do think it's a good sculpt all over the body. It does have a sort of nice textured look to it. The webs are all painted. I'm sure if you get in there with a magnifying glass, you'll see all the sort of various bits and pieces where it could be a little bit better, but this is slightly new. The torso is obviously new because the logo is different. So you've got the sort of like new Spider-Man 3 Spider-Man logo on the chest. So the torso, at least the upper torso, is a new piece. They did sculpt a new piece. So that is interesting. I do like that they did that. In terms of articulation, I do feel like it is pretty good. We've gotten this body before, which we'll take a look at pretty soon here. So it does have limitations. It's not like the perfect Spider-Man body, but you do get good Spider-Man poses out of him, I would argue. If you wanted to kind of recreate him looking in the reflection and seeing the sort of like black suit from the trailer, y'all remember that? You can kind of do that, just a little bit. It's not like super articulated, like I said, but you can still get him in some pretty good Spider-Man poses, I would say. It's not gonna be perfect, but it is something. It is something, I guess. Here he is with the sort of like thwip hand, just to kind of give you an idea of, once again, you're able to get some Spidey-esque posing in there, no doubt, but it is going to be a bit more limited than, say, like the super articulated, amazing kind of like Spider-Man's. It is a bit more standard, but still, that's Spider-Man. And then we kind of see him with this sort of like symbiote screaming at him, ripping off his skin sort of effect here. These hands actually do kind of come in handy if you kind of want to look like he's like gripping at it, trying to get it off. He's struggling for his life. It is a pretty sort of simple effect on there. Easiest way to do it is to take off the head first and then just sort of plop it around his shoulders here. And that way you can kind of, you can have it on there as much as you want, it would seem. It's fine, but it is sort of made to kind of like droop off him like this. Like that's about the best way that you're gonna get it is this sort of like on the shoulder. It almost kind of gives it like a puppety look, when it's like you've got like a puppet on your shoulder here, you got like a fake arm down here. Kind of has that vibe to it, but either way, it is good looking. If you want to kind of recreate this moment to kind of have him struggling to get the symbiote off, it is effective, I would argue. And then for comparison, we have the new black suit Tobey Maguire next to the No Way Home Tobey Maguire figure. And as you can see, it is obviously a lot of reuse. Like, it was just going to make sense to reuse this body and paint it black because that's what he looked like in the movie, Like, that's just how he appears. So overall, I do think that next to each other, they look good. Obviously, with this one, you have the sort of combed hair. It's a bit more aged to look like how he does in the movie No Way Home, but I would say that the new one has a better likeness to it, and you also get the bonus factor of it being the sort of emo symbiote Peter Parker. I think that is really exciting. But if you like the original and you want it in black, then I think you'd be pretty happy with the new figure. And there you guys go. That is a bunch of new Marvel Legends figures, all in the sort of black and gray and silver and white realm of things. A lot of mutants, a lot of real actor Tobey Maguire, but overall, I'd say it's a really good bunch of figures. Like, if you're a fan of X-Force, then yeah, you should be picking up these figures. I think that Archangel is gorgeous with the silver paints and the wings and everything, and then X-23 and Warpath are really, really good updates on characters that we needed updates for at this point. And if you like that other Spider-Man figure, then you're going to like this one. It's the same thing, but black, and it's got a cool head and a really neat Venom effect. So overall, I really don't have a whole lot to complain about here. Are they new? Are they inventive? Are they, like, exciting must-haves? No, like I said, X-Force fans, X-Men fans, movie Spider-Man fans, that is it. Like, if you're waiting for that classic Archangel, I'd say wait a little bit longer because I think we're going to get this in the classic sort of 80s color scheme, but that's still a little ways away. And yeah, if you're wanting non X-Force characters, then this isn't it. But if you do like the sort of darker, edgier style of things, then maybe check these figures out. I think they're worth it. This video is brought to you in part by Hobby Link Japan. If you're a fan of things like Super Sentai or just Japanese media in general, why don't you check out Hobby Link Japan? They've got figures, statues, and a whole horde of different kind of collectibles. Click the link down in the description below to check out Hobby Link Japan today. Thank you guys so much for watching this little unboxing video of a few Marvel Legends. I hope the theming really worked for you. I threw in that Spider-Man as just sort of something fun to do because, hey, it's sort of matched. But thanks again for watching. Feel free to check out some of my other videos. I've done unboxing for other Marvel Legends figures, X-Men related, Captain America related, whole bunch of stuff. My socials and things will be linked down in the description below. Subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. I do things with Marvel, DC, G.I. Joe, Transformers, you name it. So hopefully if that stuff interests you, you stick around and go ahead and, check out my stuff. But thanks again for watching so much, guys. I hope you enjoyed and look forward to videos in the future. But other than that, I guess that's it. So take care.